Alright, so in the polls you guys voted for me to talk about the Maltese Citizenship by Investment Program and the Maltese Passport, and in today's video I'm going to be going over all the facts that you need to know about not only the Maltese Passport and the Maltese Citizenship, but also their Citizenship by Investment Program. So let's just start off with the Maltese Passport itself before we move on to the whole Citizenship by Investment Program, the good sides and the bad sides of it. Let's first take a look at the visa requirements for the Maltese Passport. If you are a Maltese citizen, if you want to get Maltese citizenship, you have visa-free access to all of the countries that are highlighted in green. And we can certainly see that the Maltese passport is a very strong passport. Naturally, it's a European Union passport and a Schengen area passport. So when we talk about this passport, be aware that it is stronger than a lot of the other whole citizenship by investment programs. It's certainly a lot stronger than any CARICOM country. And naturally, you can get citizenship in Malta by descent, by residency. However, the most famous strategy in order to get Maltese citizenship by naturalization would actually be their investment program, although they don't actually call it an investment, they instead call it a donation. So what are the exact requirements for you to be able to get the Maltese passport if you would like to go down the investment or donation route? Well, naturally, this is actually one of the more expensive programs out there, as you would have to make a donation of the following: 600,000 euros if you are willing to reside in the country for 3 years. However, if you want to get the passport after only 1 year of residency, that price will go up to 750,000 euros. So this is certainly a lot more expensive than any of the current CARICOM CBI countries, you know, where they go for about 100k maximum, maybe about 250, maybe 300,000 at a push. No, the Maltese passport is actually double that and potentially even more if you want to shorten your residence period. Now, donating the 600,000 or 750,000 euros in this case is not good enough. The Maltese CBI program does have a couple extra steps that you need to be aware of. For example, once you've donated that amount of money, you get to step 2 in your donation process, which would either be to buy a property in Malta worth at least 700,000 euros, or maybe if you don't want to buy property, there is also a rental option where you have to rent a property that's worth around 16,000 euros a year. However, just be aware that if you are going to go down that rental route, it is a 5-year lease, so you can't just rent it for a month and then get rid of it and say, wait, hey, I've done this step. No, you have to rent it for 5 years. And it doesn't just end there. There is also one final step in regards to donating money to the Maltese country. You also have to donate 10,000 euros minimum to a Maltese non-governmental organisation, an NGO. So when we talk about this program, it is a lot more expensive than any of the other Caribbean CBI countries, because the money really does start to add up, and we haven't even taken into consideration legal fees, getting birth certificates, criminal background checks and everything else. So this is a very expensive program. And naturally, like with most countries around the world, you cannot have a criminal background, you can't have a criminal record, you can't be some massive wanted criminal and do this program. No, if they find out that you are a criminal and you haven't declared it, or maybe if you have declared it, they will probably reject your application and they might even ban you from ever applying again, because the Maltese government don't want criminals having their passports. Now, an interesting lane with this whole citizenship world, it would actually be the world of dependencies. Now, what does that mean exactly? That means maybe you have a family, you would also like to get them citizenship, right? Maybe you're married, maybe you have a spouse, you don't just want the passport for yourself. Chances are, if you love your spouse, which I hope you do, you want to get them the passport as well. And naturally, with this program, like with many of the other programs around there, you can include dependents such as a spouse, such as parents, children, and even grandparents in the Maltese case. So this is actually quite unique in regards to the whole how many dependents you can have on. And with the children, it does actually get a little bit better. For example, many countries around the world, we take the United Arab Emirates, they don't give out a family visa to the child if the child is over 18. However, with the Maltese Citizenship by Investment Program, if you have a child that's a dependent of you, naturally you're sort of paying for their life, I guess, and they are under the age of 29. 29 is an unbelievable age to have that requirement in there. So if you have a child under the age of 29 and they sort of depend on you, you can also add them to your application. Now, you might be wondering, okay, that's great, but what if I've been a naturalized citizen of Malta for maybe 5 years, I have the passport, I've traveled around the world, I've lived in Malta for 5 years, and then I have a child after that 5-year period? Would I also have to pay again for them to become a citizen? No, because the great thing about this citizenship by investment program or donation program is that it is a citizenship by descent / citizenship by inheritance available country. Meaning that if you are a Maltese citizen, and let's say you have a child after naturalization, that child will automatically be a Maltese citizen. And naturally, one of the most important questions that I often talk about on this channel would be the whole concept of dual nationality. Now, dual nationality for me is a great asset protection method. It's a great way to not only protect whatever you own, but also to protect yourself. You have to have multiple passports, in my opinion, realistically, if you want to be diversified in many realms. And the good news is that Malta, with this program and in general, they do allow dual nationality. So, you know, you're not going to have to worry about maybe you are naturalizing in the country and the Maltese government come up to you and say, well, hey, hang on, you have another passport, you better renounce there, buddy. That's not going to happen. The only case where that would happen is if the country that you are originally from doesn't allow dual nationality. Even if you are a natural born citizen of that country, then you'd probably have to make the choice between your home country and Malta, the country you're naturalising in, but it's not going to be the Maltese government forcing that upon you. So we've established the facts in this video. Now it's time to go on to the pros and the cons of doing this programme. Well, first of all, let's start with the pros. It's an EU and the Schengen area passport, so if you want a very strong passport, like we sort of established at the start of this video, you cannot have a better option than the Maltese passport. It offers you far more countries than any CARICOM country ever could, and it's just better, maybe, and you don't even have to live in Malta for the rest of your life, right? If you have the Maltese passport, after all, you could live in Portugal, you could live in Cyprus, you could live in Italy, because it's a European Union passport. Now, Malta does actually have quite good language diversification. Now, what I mean by that is that a lot of the locals speak English because of the English history and because it was sort of part of the British Empire, but naturally they also speak Maltese. That is the official language of Malta, which is the only Semitic language in Europe and in the European Union. It's sort of a mix between Italian and Arabic. Once again, it ties to the history of the country. So if you want to learn Maltese and be diversified that way, maybe you want your kids to be able to learn and speak Maltese, and it's a great country to be in. Although in my opinion, I do believe that Cyprus is a better country in regards to language diversification, because in Malta you mainly have Maltese and English, whereas in Cyprus you have Greek, English and Russian. And now let's talk about the cons. Well, first of all, this whole program is actually being challenged by the European Union and the European Commission. The European Union does not like that Malta is doing this. They did challenge them last year, and they did sort of take them to court over this. You can also see this example with the Portuguese golden visa and the Cypriot citizenship by investment program. The EU did sort of bully those because for whatever reason they don't like them. They don't want rich people investing in Europe for whatever reason. I personally can't understand why, but that is a thing to be aware of, that the European Union probably isn't too fond of this. But once again, Malta has the right to establish their own policies and they can do whatever they want. So this isn't really the end of the world, but just be aware that in the European Union and in the European Commission, they aren't too fond of these programs. Although I find this quite ironic because they don't seem to have a major problem with the Austrian citizenship by investment program. Now that might be because it's a harder one, it's a far more expensive one, but once again it does seem to be a little bit hypocritical. Another con, now this isn't really the end of the world, but it's just something that I think you need to be aware of, is that this program is actually quite well known. So if you are traveling around the world, then many countries around the world might be familiar that Malta does have a citizenship by investment program. So if you turn up to a country with a Maltese passport and they ask you, do you speak Maltese, and you say no, maybe you have a name that isn't necessarily Maltese, which I find asinine, to be honest. They might say, how did you get this passport? So just be aware of that. But I can't imagine they would deny you entry from any country if you go it through the investment route. I find that to be absolutely asinine, but just be aware that it's sort of a known program out there, so you might get a couple more questions at international borders. And with Malta, one of my major issues with the country is that it is a super small country. It is very small. Now, yes, you have YouTube channels out there like Alex in Malta who's living his best life in Malta, but for me, as someone who did grow up in multiple countries personally, I get bored of a country very easily and very quickly. I sort of have to bounce within 3 to 5 years. So for me, just be aware that Malta is a very small country. And if you're there for a long time, if you've moved around the world a lot, you might get a little bit bored of such a small country where, yes, there's a lot to do, but if you do the same thing over and over again, it will get a little bit boring. All in all, in my personal opinion, I think the Maltese Citizenship by Investment Program is a very good option out there if you have a substantial amount of money and you can invest that amount of money and that amount of time into getting a passport. In that case, it's a very good route. However, for people who just want a sort of a cheaper passport and they have about 250,000 to their name, then maybe the CARICOM countries would be a better option. But if you have an ultra high net worth and you don't mind losing about 1 to 2 million euros and you're willing to live in Malta for a few years, then this program is probably a very good option. Let me know what you think about the Maltese Citizenship by Investment program, and if you like this video, you can click right here and subscribe to this information on YouTube, and be sure to follow my podcast. I have a podcast where I interview a lot of people from the entertainment and linguistic realm, so if you want to check out those videos, I will have my podcast channel linked down below in the description. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.